All right, guys, he is the Vice President of Digital Video and Social Content at BET. Ken Gibbs Jr. joins us on the Business of Social. How you doing, Ken?
Oh, good, sir. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, man. I always kick things off with a random question, so I know you're out there in New York, so I got a couple questions for you, a little rapid fire.
Okay.
Knicks or Nets?
Celtics. I'm from Boston originally.
Oh, wow. So, okay, all right. Best Celtic of all time, then?
Oh, Chief.
Okay. There's a lot to choose from. Being in New York, though, do you go for Yankees, Mets, or you all just a Red Sox faithful?
No, I mean, I got to say, I go for Yankees. Being born and
Okay.
raised in Boston, I always tell my
That's
New York
tough.
brethren that, it's a lot more fun and civilized just to go to a Yankees game out here with all of your Boston gear on. It's always hands down a great time. I love it.
Love it. And just being in New York, would you go for Biggie, Jay-Z, or Nas?
Oh, Biggie. Biggie all day.
Love it. All right, man. So I want to walk you through your role at BET, just kind of your role, what you oversee day to day. Would love to hear from you.
Got it, got it. So, I mean, my day-to-day role is overseeing the social media strategy across all of the social platforms. That is primarily around, building awareness for our linear priorities, our scripted, our unscripted, our tentpole events, as well as our offline events like the BET Experience, our festival that happens in LA every year. But it also includes promotion of our digital original series, right? So we've got very popular ones from Rate the Bars to even upcoming ones like Sneaker Boxes and Colorways that'll be premiering this week. But also even working with influencers as well. Really not only just to build awareness and engage the community, but also just to make sure that BET is in the hearts and minds of our target audience 24/7. Because even though TV might have its certain windows in today's environment and our audience, it's an always on situation.
I love it. I heard through Tatiana, who works in your team, I think you guys oversee 300 accounts at BET
Yeah.
and social.
Yeah, I think she might have left a few off. But yeah. So
That's quite a bit.
we've got a number of accounts, and we're optimizing that strategy. I mean, we've so prior to myself, there was JP Lesmanas. He was the senior director of social media before they had ever created a VP position and really allowed us to grow the team as we have today, which was signaled by bringing on Tatiana and some of the other people that we have as of since. So yes, we do have 300 accounts across Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, Instagram, and some other platforms as well, lower levels. But obviously, I think our priorities are YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter as well. And we're looking at consolidating those. And part of the reason why the number of accounts is so broad is partially a nod to a past strategy. And I think most networks had this, we've got a new show. It's coming out. Let's create an account for it.
Let's release 7 accounts immediately. Yeah.
Exactly. And what do you do with that next season if the show doesn't come back?
Yeah, that's a good point. But there's only so much that can go on the mothership account. So the @BET account can't serve everything. So how have you found, I think that's a common, not issue, but a common thing that every network really dives into is like what goes on the main feed and what do we create as like subsidiary feeds?
So strategically, what goes on the main feed should be in connection with what's actually on the linear network, right? Because people are coming to that main feed because of their familiarity with the linear network and looking to get an extension of that experience there. But then, in the world where social content and social engagement is now being monetized as well, there's always a balance when you're looking for scale. But we've also got a digital business in which we've got to drive eyeballs to a website to get display revenue, pre-roll as well. So it really is a balance in all of those situations.
Love it, man. So you started at BT, I think in 2012, right?
Yep. six years ago in October.
So I've heard this a lot for people that started in a certain area, like in the 2011, 2012. I'm guessing you kind of carved your niche in a way. Like a 2012, social's a thing, but it's not as huge, obviously, as it is now for distribution. So it looked like you've kind of worked your way through the ranks of BET as social's grown. So as your responsibility and your role.
It has been. I mean, I am natively from the startup space, right? So before I came to AOL, I was part of Africana.com with Henry Louis Gates and those guys out of Cambridge and Cambridge Afro-Am program at Harvard. And we got acquired by AOL back. I mean, Time
Okay.
Warner, quite honestly, just before the AOL deal. So I'd been in the digital space. I've been doing this for
Nice.
like over 20 years at this point, and I came to BET to do digital operations, really helping them understand how digital could be a separate business unto itself, not just complementary to when linear popular shows were in season. I think during that time it was like, oh, show in season, show out of season, in season from a revenue
Yeah.
perspective, right?
Yep.
So I came from a space where we didn't have a network to fall back on, so it was more so like, hey, let's make that line actually plateau and start
Mm.
to inch upward, regardless of when our shows were in season or we're being hit by a tentpole. So we brought a lot of branded content ideas to BET, really showing them how to create other revenue streams and opportunities. And along that route, while we were doing that, social began to continue to mature, and
Yep.
our target audience itself really began to separate themselves and stand out
Okay.
and show their value there. So I think that also helped the organization understand the appeal that I would bring to kind of augmenting that, but why they needed to really double down on social.
That's interesting because I think I've always said that, especially the next 3 to 5 years, I think we're going to see a huge shift with just the monetization of these different social platforms and really bringing in some serious revenue where teams like yourself can continue to scale and bring more resources on. How have you seen it since 2012, being able to create revenue from those digital series outside of just the linear window, if you will?
Oh, I mean, it's nothing but upwards. Nothing but
Yep.
upwards. I mean, I think people may have noticed our red carpet live streams that generally accompany our tempos that we do.
Hmm.
Those first began as purely marketing vehicles, really building awareness on the social platforms as we lead into a live linear premiere, whether it be live or taped, quite honestly. But now sponsors want a presence there as well. Other marketing opportunities that we've created here, like the Insta booth, something that we kicked
Oh,
off.
I was going to ask you about that.
Okay,
You're
okay.
really,
Well, I don't want to steal the thunder then.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I love it.
Well, I mean, go
No,
ahead, go
go
ahead.
go ahead. Sorry.
Well, the only thing I'd say about that is it's a great example of how, cool creative opportunities that start off as marketing initiatives
Mhm.
also get the attention of sponsors as well.
Yeah, and I think how have you seen when you develop these franchises? Are you able to? Do you usually have to start it off with let's do the Insta booth, let's see the engagement we get from there. Maybe let's do a rate card for the next year's award show, and kind of be able to say we can guarantee you this. And like, how does that work in terms of telling the sponsor what they're going to gain from this opportunity?
I would actually say, believe it or not, it really depends on the sponsor and the relationship, right? So
Yep.
we've actually kind of done it both ways. The InstaBooth example was one that happened just that way. It was something that was successful purely from an organic standpoint, no sponsor association, but the creative itself was one that any sponsor would be comfortable with. Then we also had another situation, and this was actually more early on in my tenure at BET, where myself, JP Espinasigan and Jomo Davis combined forces to create Blocks, hashtag BLX, which was literally a profile series of celebrities walking and talking on the block that they grew up on.
Hmm.
So, it's got a bit of geolocation in there as well. There are no on-camera personalities aside from the actual celebrity that you're talking to, keeping production costs very low as well. But also, this is something that takes you around the country, right? So that's something that we created internally, and prior to publish, presented to the sales team, spoke to them about the proper client for it, and then a sponsor actually came on before it was ever
Love it.
natively organically published.
Yeah, I think I wanted to talk to you about the Insta booth because I remember that coming across my feed about 3 years ago, I think, when you launched it.
Yeah.
And then just before this podcast, just kind of researching you on LinkedIn as well. I read your article about it. And that's really, I mean, that was innovative stuff 3 years ago. I mean, there's a lot of people that are doing that now, but you have to remember back in 2015, that was really kind of going out on a limb and doing something really cool. But essentially, you were able to get, I think 40 different top artists to recreate a kind of Rap Cities, the basement, which was kind of like a show that everybody has really kind of taken a liking to. But can you talk a little bit about how that all came together and the success from that?
Yeah, basically, I mean, in a nutshell, our BET Tempo properties, our award shows are attended by the who's who in urban entertainment, hands down, period. The question was, how can we take advantage of their presence in a way that will essentially kind of break the internet by showing consumers, viewers, everyone, how we're able to bring together so many people from so many different disciplines, right? Because have you ever made it to the BET Awards?
I've watched BET Awards. I've not been there.
The BET
Yeah.
Awards is it's one half family reunion, one half high school talent show.
Gotcha.
Because you've got so many people from executives to artists that have long term relationships with one another, right? Just trying to succeed in the business over the years, and they often meet again. Sometimes it's a few years, sometimes a few months, whatever. But it's like a safe place at the BET Awards and the BET environment. So
Right.
the first year we partnered with Benny Boom, and the idea was like,
Mhm.
hey, let's just bring everybody in here and do something super cool, right? And so we did it. It was great. It looked beautiful, but it lacked a cohesiveness, any connective tissue between the dancer, the NBA athlete, and the rapper. Why are all those three people in a room aside from that they're famous enough to get access to the red carpet?
Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah.
so as we looked like, okay, it was great. We spent a decent amount of money. We felt we got the proper ROI because what a lot of people don't realize about that is after you step out of these booths on the red carpet, by the time you hit your seat, our logistics operation, make sure that you or the rep that you designated has that clip so that you can
Yep.
share it on
That's
your
the key.
socials in real time.
Yeah.
So looking at that and examining kind of what we thought went well and what didn't work at the BET Awards, we saw the Hip Hop Awards as an opportunity to basically create, and this was definitely dating myself, but the goal was to come out of that with a self-destruction type moment, right? Where all these rappers get together, they make a song, the song strikes fire. It obviously wasn't a self-destruction moment, but the environment itself really did allow for us to put together what 3 years later has become something that people look forward to each year, which is
That's awesome.
roughly like a 7-minute track with everyone who's anyone that year in hip hop.
That's awesome. Were you afraid at all, or did you guys run into anybody that was a little insecure, like they didn't want to freestyle off the top, essentially? Like, is that a problem?
Oh yes, oh
Yeah.
yes, and it made for a lot of comical moments. But I think it also really showed how far hip hop has come. I mean, relationships are bread and butter, so I'm not going to throw any names out there. But there, just for context, year one, when you walk up to the booth, it was all black. You couldn't see anything. You did not know what was happening inside, and that was purposeful.
And that's tough for celebrities too, because like, what am I walking into? Is this homework? I mean, I definitely get that. You got to
Exactly.
make it enticing.
You do,
Yeah.
but it's hip hop. We got to keep it real. Only the strong survive. So you would have year one. You have to step up to the door. We gave you a verbal explanation of what it was. You could hear the beats kind of surging from
Okay.
behind it, but you also had to sign everything, all the releases before you step in. We had some big name rappers. The one
So you guys won't get sued once the track gets a Grammy.
exactly.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
you might have got in there and said something that's not yours or something like that.
Ooh, yeah.
But there were a few big artists, one in particular that stepped in, looked, and was like, no, I get paid to rap. You know, and
Interesting.
it was
Interesting.
very interesting. But we all had a big laugh about it. But there was also somebody who was much older and had been in the booth with Tigger for years, many times. And this is really a draw for the aspect of the rap community that looks back with nostalgia on Rap City, but
Mm,
just says, when my career kicked off, the show wasn't here. I never got my chance in the booth with Big Tigger.
yeah.
So that's really also what we did this for and why people are
That's
excited.
awesome. And like you said, if guys weren't down to rap like DJ Khaled or Rick Ross, they were just kind of in the background, kind of being the hype men and stuff like that. So it's, you could find a way to get those big names. That's awesome, man. I've always said that I think, as we go towards 2019, 2020, it's really kind of taking a page at a late night TV. You see carpool karaoke, how successful that's been, or mean tweets. And it sounds like you're on that same wavelength. Like, how can we package these franchises up so that way they're monetizable and it's actually a tangible thing that we can go to sponsorship with, or sponsors and partners can come to us and say, hey, we really want to be involved with that. It seems like you get that part of the game and even got it before a lot of others have.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm from the startup space,
Yeah.
so you normally start with something and have to, after a certain point, give serious consideration as to how you're going to be allowed to continue.
Hmm.
So bringing in revenue is just a part of the game.
And it seems like you've done a good job of kind of productifying these different elements that your team is working on, so that way that in game does happen.
Definitely so,
Yeah.
and at every turn, trying never to sacrifice their creativity.
I love it. All right, so I want to get some overall general questions. When you think of social, how do you and your team approach social, and what's your kind of core belief on how to utilize that distribution?
I think the core approach to social is to be true to our audience, right? It's it is a nuanced consumer who is engaging with our brand 24/7, and they aren't held to the same rules that we are. They're going to speak truthfully, and we've got to be respectful and mindful of that. What we're going to get from them is true, and we've got to bring that internally, quite honestly, to all of our other partners who realize that our team is on the front lines communicating the reaction of the audience to their creative product.
Yeah, I think that's funny that you said that. A lot of people have said this on this show. And for some reason, I mean, programming your content to your audience seems like such a obvious thing that you would do. But still, I think a lot of brands miss that, where they're programming for the money or they're programming for what's happening internally, and it's not what the fan base wants to see.
It is, but I think also, we're all human beings, and at certain points in your life, you may be closer to the audience than you ultimately turn out to be years down the line when you're sitting in that seat, right?
Good point.
And I think social kind of allows a lot of us to stay forever young, so to speak, and really get that genuine, unfiltered feedback.
That's a good point. What is one thing you think brands are not doing enough of or make mistakes when they're speaking to their audience on social?
Uh, Not doing enough of, speaking to them in a tone that is fitting for the environment that the audience lives in. Right. And it's interesting because I think as of late, you've seen the food brands, the fast food brands in particular,
Wendy's,
like Wendy's is like the champion.
Taco Bell's always been good. Yeah.
Taco Bell definitely. I think Taco Bell was there first, and Wendy's kind of took it from them.
Yeah.
But I think it's really those brands understanding that the nature of their product alone allows them more room than some of us other brands, us media brands in particular, in terms of speaking to the audience in the language that they would speak to one another with. When you're at a network level, as particularly a niche network like BET, I always say, we're speaking to the granddaughter and the grandmother from a brand perspective at the same time.
Tough. That's tough.
Right. But that's also where social and our social strategy really comes to play. Because at least at this point, we aren't thinking that there are many grandmothers on a Snapchat, for instance. So from a tonal perspective, we can speak more directly to the granddaughter there. And really just looking internally at our analytics, we might think or have proof and reason to believe that there's a bit of an older audience on our Facebook channel, for instance. So even though we've got a larger voice, we really do kind of dissect it and divide it up per platform and account as it relates to some of the shows.
I love that. What is your guys' core demo on social at BET?
Core demo would be a female consumer.
Really?
Yes. Our core demo across the majority of the platforms, with the exception of YouTube. And I think that more so speaks to YouTube as a platform. But yes, our core consumer across social platforms would be a woman, probably between 25 and 49.
Gotcha. I always ask people this question, but where do you think currently the undervalued attention is in the digital space?
Undervalued attention?
Yeah, just a place you think not enough marketers or brands are spending enough time on that you think is getting the better engagement, better eyeballs, things like that.
Quite honestly, I think right now we're in a little bit of saturation. I think everyone is just trying to figure out the algorithms, right? Which is turned out to be the largest problem because it causes for a constant need to reinvent a strategy that, quite honestly, may have been completely successful, like gangbusters for a quarter. Then an algorithm shift, you come in the next day and all your numbers are down over 50%. Right. That I think is something, quite honestly, for me, having been in the space for so long, something really new.
Well, especially since you came from the startup game, it's almost like creating a beautiful piece of software that's going to solve everybody's problems. And you come in one day and, hey, you can't use half of that code anymore. and just like, okay, let's go back from scratch.
That's
And I think that happens.
exactly
Yeah.
what it's like.
And I think most recently it's like, hey guys, IGTV is now a thing. All right, so I guess we got to whiteboard this out and see how we're going to attack it in the next 6 months. Which I wanted to ask your opinion on that with all your original series on digital you guys are performing that you talked about, like Rate the Bars, things like that. Are you guys playing in the IGTV space, and what's your opinion on it, kind of in the early stages?
So, I mean, we've definitely had our eye on IGTV. We put our first show in there around the BET Awards this year. We put all of our performances there as well. We've been watching it, quite honestly. We've been watching it. I
Same here,
mean,
yeah.
for us, we're looking at the value of having to crop everything from 16 by 9 to 9 by 16. Also, keeping an eye on other partners and competitors who are just putting messages in the beginning of their videos that say tilt your phone so that you can just watch this in a 16 by 9. Because I think ultimately everyone needs to question the ROI, right? There's some things that you can do automatically, just run it through a program. It'll crop it all. It'll follow the people, whether you're using a wild mocha or what
You're going to
have you.
make your consumer rotate their device 90 degrees? How dare you? That's too much to ask.
I mean, exactly, right?
No, that's a good point. But like, even like you said, just to go from 16 by 9 to 9 to 16, that can cause hours and hours and hours of production time, and you guys only have so much time in the day. So how do you make those calls type deal?
For us, it's the ROI, right? So
Yeah.
we put our biggest show of the year on there in the BET Awards, and I think ultimately you need to look at those views. We put some other things on there. I personally haven't seen the traction yet, but we're experimenting.
Yeah, I think it's still we've seen too. It's just we're such in the early stages. It's not really that user friendly yet. We've talked about a lot, so it's kind of like a wait and see. And maybe V2 of IGTV will be the one that starts to take off. So other than revenue, how do you measure success on your digital platforms? What are you guys looking at on a weekly or monthly basis to make sure you're hitting?
For us, video views and overall engagement. Right, time spent as well. So the video views a little bit misleading when you're looking at how many of the platforms actually quantify it. So while that metric is important for us as creators, it's really the watch time too. Because I need to know if you're genuinely interested in this, and that'll give me much more insight into my next episode or my next franchise.
And I feel like when I scroll on Instagram, I just happen to watch it for 3 seconds just by scrolling. So the 3-second metric, to your point, is kind of a tough stat to follow. I like it. So BET is a network. I mean, it launched in 1980, and it's really gone through different transitions, over the last, what is it now, 36 years or 38 years. As we sit here in 2018, what is the overall message you think the network is trying to portray and kind of get across to the end consumer?
Well, I think it's one that we still got you, right? Like that used to be our tagline, but we're a business that was born out of a need in the marketplace, and we're in a time right now where you're seeing more and more black faces across the proliferation of screens, right? However, that still means, or that doesn't negate the need for a brand like BET, and we're available to our consumers on all platforms as well. We are a cable network, but we aren't only on cable, and that's what you're seeing with our digital original, social, and just overall digital publishing strategy as well.
I ask this a lot to people that work in TV, and I'm sure you're familiar with the ProMax BDA conference that happens in New York kind of on a yearly basis. But that was a huge conversation at the conference this year, was the transition from if revenue ratings are going to decline and there's going to be more money taken away from that as far as your biggest revenue generator, can you supplement that with the digital, and how is that going to happen over the next few years with OTT and things like that? So are those conversations internally you guys are constantly having as linear kind of transitions over to OTT and digital?
Yes, totally. I mean, also the new revenue streams in that our linear programs are finding new life and opportunities on other platforms, right? Real Husbands of Hollywood, Being Mary Jane, some of the top programs within Netflix. But also, I actually came to BET 5 years ago to really help kick off 6 years ago, the BET experience, right? Experiential. Huge part of the business in terms of expansion. Also, I think in this world where you can touch everything digitally, there's an increased or renewed need to make a physical connection. And that's also, I think, reinvigorated the festival space, which is near and dear to me because it links with my digital passions and desires to really combine what we're doing on the technology end of things with real world physical strategic planning as well.
Do you think?
Go ahead.
Oh, do you think that's what's going to separate some cable channels that are eventually just going to go bankrupt and go away, and the ones that are going to stay and continue and grow and thrive? Is that part of it? Like the experimental, the technology, like is that the kind of the big thing that you think all networks should focus on?
I think that will be the path to success and survival for some, right? I don't think every brand is really the one that's got the power and connection to have people come out of their homes and want
Yeah.
to connect with them. But BET is a unique one in that way. And we've already taken the experience from LA to South Africa as just a test case scenario and are entertaining other ideas as well. So I definitely
That's
do think
awesome.
there's future there.
All right. So, what are some new and innovative ways that you guys have tried out this year? It's already November, by the way. I don't know if you
Wow.
realize that today,
Yeah.
but Christmas is around the corner, so we almost have the whole 2018 under wraps, man. So those year-end reports are coming probably. Anything that stick out to you when we talk about 2018 at BET that was really successful or innovating or kind of something you were proud of?
Got it, got it. Bunch of different things. So this year in particular at the BET Awards for the Instabooth execution, we did something that was completely different, and we transformed the 20 by 20 space into a bodega. And every product on the shelf, either it was an internet slang saying, or it referenced one of our legacy IP properties, whether it be your 106 or your Rap City or what have
Nice.
you. Everyone had the chance to come in and actually engage with it, and we had an influencer and Major Hype behind the counter and one of his famous internet characters acting as the cashier as well. That recently won the Platinum Award at the Marcom Awards for Best YouTube and Best Social Video Campaign.
Nice.
So that was a cool one. Another one that we did at the top of the year. So our fiscal is in October, so my head is somewhat divided. Um, but so we had the social awards in March of 2018, which is our second live show. The BET Awards traditionally being our only one in a much larger show as well. But that was early in 2018, if you recall, live video was really the thing across every platform. So we wanted to figure out how could we experiment and incorporate it into the social awards in a way that, quite honestly, we just knew they wouldn't let us in the
Well,
BET
and to your
Awards.
point about the algorithm earlier, that was when Facebook and Zuckerberg were
Yes.
cranking that puppy up, so you had to take advantage of it.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So literally within the show, we had the host, Michael Blackson, throw to a table that we had on stage with social influencers that were from around the world that was moderated by King Keron. And it had a 360 camera embedded, it drilled into a hole, custom made in the middle of the table. So at each commercial break, you could log on to this, and the influencers would be talking about what
Nice.
just happened. And they ultimately even gave out the award for best podcast to Joe Budden and his team there.
Very cool. That's awesome. This is so random, but can we talk about Will Smith and what he's been able to do on social? I mean, this is
Yes.
just his engagement rate is, I even looked that up recently, is through the roof, obviously. But I think he started last year and he's like on the Rock and Kevin Hart's level already, like in the last
Mhm.
12 months. I mean, what are your thoughts on what he's done to kind of reintroduce himself to the to the younger audience?
I mean, I think he really just confirms a long held suspicion by most, and that social media is really just about access, right?
Yeah.
So before you even had the opportunity to reach out to Will Smith, you knew who he was. You've been waiting for Will Smith to get on social so you could
Yeah.
add him in some way, shape, or form,
Hmm.
right? And when he gets on there and he actually does provide you this access, it looks like the world of his fans have been waiting for this. And instantly he jumps over stars, not unlike The Rock. But, hey, Kevin Hart was kind of birthed on social,
Yep.
right? So stars like that, I think, Will Smith is going to get past quickly. But again, he's really just proving that people are looking to use these platforms to really decrease the distance between them and the people they've admired and not been able to engage with.
Yeah, and I think what was interesting about The Rock and Kevin Hart specifically, like all their movie deals started to have separate contracts about if you want to use my social media following to, pump this movie out, that's kind of a different distribution contract we need to sign. It
Mhm.
seems like Will Smith and these other actors understand that if I want to get the influence, it's best to have, my own fan base I can speak to whenever I want.
Yeah, I mean, I'm actually watching it closely because of that. Because I mean, Will Smith is a different type of celebrity than your
Hmm.
Kevin Hart and your Rock. He's got a different type of cachet, right? So I think what he's doing is really gonna continue to evolve the social business. And as someone who, I mean, hey, Will wasn't winning that Fourth of July weekend as he had been for the last 2, 3 years,
Yeah, that's a
right?
great point.
But all of a sudden, no one can talk about anything
I
except for
know.
Will Smith. Right. So it's
Yeah.
very interesting to me how he's pushing the needle.
Yeah, like before it was if you're in that blockbuster Independence Day type of movie, you're going to be known
Mhm.
around the world. Now, if you're not on social, you may be missed, or you may not know, the new generation may not know about what Will Smith is all about. So, um, I think it also taps into that nostalgia thing you talked about earlier. Like everybody growing up watching Fresh Prince of Bel Air, there's just like
Exactly.
this affinity. So when they see him come back again, dancing, whatever, it just brings back good memories from high school or whatever.
Hmm.
Um, so how do you see social changing? I hate to. It's always tough to predict the future, obviously, but in the next 3 to 5 years, like if you had to put together, kind of go back to your entrepreneur days, kind of that projection plan, where do you kind of see this all going, and where are we headed?
It's interesting. It's interesting. I mean, I think we're going to continue to see more engagement. More engagement. I don't even think we've begun to scratch the surface yet, but it's something that is kind of impressed upon me every day being within a network because at the end of the day, video is video is video. What really separates the video that is created by our linear partners from what we can do on my team with video? And the only thing is engagement. The TV at this point still remains a one-way device. We sit
Mhm.
there, we look at it, we receive. On any of the social platforms at this point, we can actually have some engagement. And I think we're starting. I think you're starting to see the tip of that iceberg in the radio space, right? It's like, oh, you want to request a song? Do it on the gram. What have you there?
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think that will begin to get more integrated into TV programming, and you're already seeing it also with things like HQ, right? I think the game show, rather, I think that's just
yeah,
the
yeah. HQ.
beginning of what's going to
Yeah.
be the norm.
Yeah, I've always said what's interesting about HQ Trivia is it's found a way to bring back around appointment view television because you have
Hmm.
to be at a certain place at a certain time and engage, and you can't wait for it or DVR it type deal. So I think that's kind of the future as well. I totally agree there. All right, so I know it's a Friday, so we're gonna get you out of here pretty quick, but I have some rapid fire questions for you to kind of end it off.
Okay.
Um, what is the one social or marketing tool that you could not live without?
So when you say social and marketing tool, does that also include hardware?
Potentially. I mean, crowd technically gets mentioned a lot on this show, but
Okay. Okay.
um,
Got it.
something
Got.
you guys use a lot internally.
Yeah. I'd say sprinkler and tubular.
Awesome. From a business perspective, what social platform seems to be working the best for BET right now?
YouTube.
Yeah. Rank in order: Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, in order of importance for BET social strategy.
Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat.
What are you doing right now on Snapchat? I think that's super interesting. Kind of how they took over for a while there, and now I feel like a lot of brands are just starting to put less and less resources behind that.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, if you're not going to share the metrics with me, I don't really have a ROI case of why I should continue to invest.
That's a
I
good
mean,
point.
that's just a business thing.
Yeah.
In all honesty, regardless of how quote unquote cool it is, right? Because we do Snapchat live stories for all of our big shows, right?
Hmm.
That's a no-brainer. We're definitely going to do those, and we also have shows on Snapchat right now.
Okay.
We've got
Are
so
those metrics shared with you by the partnership?
yes,
Okay.
yes, but that's a bit different than the other level of investment that you
Yeah.
could put into the platform.
Right.
So they totally give us that. Our stuff is performing like gangbusters there, so we will continue to bring programming there.
Gotcha.
But that more so feeds into our DNA. Like we're a network, we create and distribute programming. That's what we do. But there are so many other things that you could do on that platform, and Instagram is taking a lot of it right now.
Yes. Until the algorithm changes. In
Hmm.
our industry, I think I always ask this question, but FOMO is a major thing. So, what are the things that you recommend, kind of for all social media marketers, to stay on top of, or to follow, or to read, to make sure you kind of stay on top of the ever changing environment?
Mm. I that so that's a hard one for me because, in all honesty, I read everything. I read everything that's
Does
out
Twitter
there.
become like your RSS feed, or LinkedIn, just all of
Yeah.
them? Like,
So I mean, definitely on LinkedIn, just a certain amount of people who I follow. On Twitter, I've got groups set up with all of my peers and other reporters in the space. So I'll check those groups in the morning to really see what they're talking about, to see if something for whatever reason isn't in my inbox.
right.
Or even just to see where they are, right? Like, oh, are you at the Apple event? Are you at CES? Are you at Comic Con? And if you are, what are you checking out? Should I be checking that out as well?
Always curious. I love that. What inspires you, and how do you stay on the cutting edge? What gets you up in the morning and makes you excited?
Possibility. Possibility. Really, before the internet was kind of what it was, I always thought what the world would be like if everyone had the opportunity to speak to one another. Because when you look at just how the world was constructed from a historical standpoint, how dynasties are able to be preserved or they are actually taken down, much of it had to do with communications and new perspectives from different
Interesting.
places.
Yeah.
But even also just, being in America, someone from the Northeast having family that lives in the South, understanding how their style changed once they had cable TV, and then seeing how there was really no difference at all between our style, slang, and just overall social activities once they had the internet.
All right. And the last question for you: any advice that a lot of people in the social media marketing world that listen to the show that would love to be in a position like you, VP of digital video, very cool position? Any advice on anybody trying to strive to get there?
Uh, you've got to practice excellence. Quite honestly, never think you're working too hard because it actually does take a lot of hard work, but it should be work that you love. And be respectful. You never know who
Yeah.
will be who along the way. This is a business that is built on relationship. I know you might hear a title like, oh, VP, and think it's, some story thing. We're still talking about a space that hasn't even been here for 50 years yet, right? We are still very early on in the progression of this space. And what was, just gospel yesterday might be blasphemous tomorrow, right? So I think
Can I use that quote? I want to have a shirt that says that. I love that.
but being respectful to everyone kind of allows you that freedom to be wrong because you will be
Yeah, that's a
wrong.
good. Yeah, yeah, you will be wrong. I like that too. All right, so I also ask everybody at the end of podcasts this question: if you could recommend anybody in your network that you can nominate to be the next guest on this show, who do you think would be a good person to meet and talk to?
Hmm. I mean, you kind of started off the conversation with her, but I would say Tatiana Hollyfield,
Yeah,
right? So Tatiana is definitely on my team. I think she's got the unique perspective from the shy.
she's very, very nice human being.
Indeed, indeed. I mean, we play good
She
cop, bad
subscribes
cop.
to your theory. Be a nice person.
Yeah, I mean, hey, it's a tough business. Don't let it weigh you down.
Yeah,
But also, I think she's brought incredible value to the team as well.
I love it. Well, I'm willing to put a wager because the Celtics have 17 World Championships, the Lakers have 16. I grew up in LA.
Mm.
I think we're gonna get another one before you guys do with LeBron. But
Yeah, yeah. I'm not. All I can say is that I'm happy about the World Series, and if that was to happen this year, at least I've got the World Series.
the Celtics though, man, Jason Tatum and Jalen Brown and Kyrie, I mean, you got a squad.
We do, but we were also taking bets as to where LeBron would go, if he would go to LA
That's
or if he
true.
would go to the Celtics. I thought if LeBron really wanted to make a mark, he would go to the Celtics because, from I think a monetary standpoint, the Celtics is in a market that could really afford him. However, it is one that's more flexible and has a historical legacy to allow him something that no other would afford and possibly give him that player coach position that was once held.
Bill
Um,
Russell.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I mean that was wishful thinking. He did what I don't think was a very heavy lift by going to the Lakers. But we'll see. We'll see. If the Celtics win, we'll have this conversation.
I think they're going to go to the finals this year. I'll say that. They'll have a tough time with Toronto. But I do think at the end of the day, LeBron wanted to learn from Magic, probably one of the number one athlete ever to transition to the business world,
Mhm.
and then be in LA with all the movie opportunities and stuff. I get it. I get it from a post basketball decision.
Yeah. No, I mean,
Yeah.
which I think also means that he doesn't have very much time left, right? Like he's thinking about the end.
You're killing all my hopes, man. No, but Ken, it was a pleasure to talk to you, man. Very much appreciate it. I'll be up in actually New York a couple times next few months. We'll have to meet up and
Yeah, let's
grab
make it
some
happen.
coffee or a drink, man.
Perfect.
Cool.
It's
Thanks
been
so much,
great.
man.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Talk soon.
All right. Bye bye.
All right, there you have it. That was a good one, fellas. We had some really good quotes from Ken there. I like his thought on IGTV. It's still early, as we've been saying all along the last couple episodes on this show, but also kind of always determining the ROI. Like if I'm going to all the way down granular, right? Like if I'm going to cut all this footage down to from 16:9 to 9:16, how many hours is that going to take? And based on engagement, is that kind of worth my time? So I think all of us in the social media world are always doing those calculations, kind of the risk reward, as we all have, limited staffs and only so much time in the day. Also, what he loves about Snapchat, he ranks Snapchat dead last, which I think a lot of people listening and a lot of people we've interviewed probably would do the same. If you're not going to share your metrics with me, it's tough for me to invest. And I really agree with that as well. So making those platforms more user-friendly for the marketers out there are probably going to give Snapchat a little bit more success. And I think my favorite quote of the show was something along the lines of what was gospel yesterday could be blasphemous tomorrow. I love that, man. So true, especially in this ever-changing landscape we always try to keep you guys up to speed on. No statement could be truer, but damn, learned a lot of information from Ken on this episode. He definitely dropped some great knowledge, and looking forward to talking to him more to kind of geek out over the space, man. So Business is Social podcast, as always, powered by STN Digital. I want to thank Auntie Lightning. I want to thank Sam Howard, David Furker, Will Kelly for all their help to produce the show. Once again, Business is Social, powered by STN Digital.